Maybe the logo.
Yeah. Exactly.
And we're live. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the World of Grey podcast. In a society divided by black and white arguments, we are here to help you explore
the world of gray.
I am Kelowna's Cougar Meat Kid, Colin Cutler.
I am the Flow Mike Chisholm. Welcome to this week's rendition of the World of Grey podcast. I am very excited because we are going to be discussing the documentary that's on the Netflix called Game Changers.
Yes, we are, Mike. And if you haven't heard of this documentary, the idea of it is not necessarily to convince you that you need to be on a plant-based diet, but trying to provide some science that they like their research that is proving that a plant-based diet is more efficient for sports nutrition and for physical activity and for performance, right? For enhancing your performance. But then also it goes a little bit into the meat industry and a little bit of the corruption. So here's the thing. I'm not a nutritionist. I'm a personal trainer. My knowledge of nutrition is very, very limited.
Right.
My ability to give nutrition advice limited to the Canadian Food Guide, which changes all the time. So I'm
CFG.
So I'm going to put a disclaimer, just like the documentary did. And this is not my advice. I'm not giving advice to anyone.
No, we're going to just talk about our feelings on this movie.
Correct. That being said, I have a staff member, one of our veteran full-time staff who is there every day at the downtown YMCA, who has his sports nutrition or is just finishing it up with Precision Nutrition.
Right.
And his wife,
Does that the name of the business? Precision Nutrition?
That's the name of the governing body.
Precision Nutrition.
I believe.
It's fantastic.
It sounds like right.
If I opened up a nutrition company,
and then his wife is, I believe, a dietitian. Or has her nutrition degree, but that's what she does, right?
Precision Nutrition and dietitian.
So they're gonna watch at least some of this documentary, and take some of the questions we have, and we are most likely at some point going to do a follow up with one of them, if not both of them.
Sure, that'd be a deep dive.
Yeah, and then deep dive a little bit more into the science here. So
today is Bird's Eye. Next time will be deep dive.
Yeah, there you go. And our opinion. And so there's a lot going on here because I've talked to a few people who have seen this documentary, some people who really like it, and some people who have already dug into a little bit of it and to their own knowledge or debunking it.
Okay. So what did you think of it, first and foremost? Did it make you think?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, here's the thing. I was in video production. Also, how did we lose all these people once we actually started about?
They've all come over to my watch party. I'm waving at them all.
Watch party.
Over. Yeah, nice job.
Excellent. Cool.
Hey, watch party.
So watch for comments because we can answer them off that.
Yeah, there's so far it's just Bobby Bass and Kevin Jeffries talking about buying beers at CAC. That's all we got so far.
Hey, it's a community, whatever works. Kevin Jeffries came with us, Super Evil. I really appreciate him being there. But
nice.
We're on topic now, so I'll keep it to that.
Okay.
So I took video production in school, in high school and middle school, like for years. And we did a documentary project. And the first rule that was told to us is when you do a documentary and you have a point to get across, you manipulate every part of that documentary to get that point across.
Yes.
So in knowing that, I can see it in this documentary, and that I can get into a little bit later in this podcast.
Sure. The premise of the movie, for those who haven't watched it, by the way, for those who haven't watched it, I highly recommend watching it. It's a movie that talks a lot about plant-based versus meat, and what it does to the human body based on super athletes, I guess is the only way you'd kind of describe it. Like it really UFC fighters, Olympic athletes from different sports,
high level athletes,
high level college athletes, Olympians, NFL, and basically challenging some of the old standards that you got to get your protein from a meat source if you want to have the most efficient protein. And this movie does a very good job of bringing up a point that's not necessarily true
and making you think.
It makes you think. And the thing I liked about, I'll tell you a couple of the things right off the hop that I liked about this movie. Number one, it wasn't about weight loss. So many times there's these nutrition movies that have come out that I've seen, the ones that like talk about juicing everything or whatever, and they incorporate weight loss into it, and they inspire people to lose weight when that's not really the point. So I'm glad that this movie wasn't about weight loss. I'm also really glad that this movie wasn't about, and they do kind of touch on it a little bit, but not really. They don't on the heartbreaking truths about the meat industry and how we get our meat to the supermarket. That disconnect that's there. If you want to watch a movie that will teach you that, this isn't that movie. This movie here really does a good job of staying away from a lot of the political stuff and just tries to use data to open up the idea that, you know what, plant-based might be better. Like The World's Strongest Man is a great example of that. They have the world's strongest man in this, and he believes, you know, he uses the term strong as an ox. Well, what does an ox eat? Oxes eat plants.
So just because you're on that
Sure.
part of it,
Yeah.
so Camaro Cope was talking about that, and he hates that line in the documentary because he's
Okay.
like, "Have you seen the overall health of an ox?" He's like, "They have terrible teeth. The digestive tract is a mess." He's like, "Oxes are not healthy at
Are they?
all." Yeah,
don't-
apparently they're very unhealthy.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So
All right,
here's-
well, let's use the silverback gorilla. How about that?
there you go.
Silverback gorilla, pretty damn strong
Right.
animal, and that sucker only eats plants.
So I just have some questions with the documentary. Really, like, I it's hard because there is a little bit of false equivalencies in this documentary where they kind of like take some leaps. One example that I can think like that I can remember, because everyone knows I have a shit memory and I only watched this thing once. Well, two things. One is they're trying to say that protein is just the middleman.
Okay.
Or sorry, animals are just the middleman for protein because
Right.
animals eat the protein. And
Right.
then we eat the animals, and it takes an animal has to eat 4 times the amount of protein for us to get the protein out of them.
Yes.
The problem I have with that is, what are these animals eating?
Okay.
Right? So, like, okay, yeah, sure, a cow has to eat 4 times the amount of protein with what he eats for us to get the protein out of him.
Right.
But he's eating fucking grass. So what are
Right.
you gonna do? Eat grass all day? So my question then is, so we're saying that we take up all this land for farming and we should use that for agriculture, for fruits and vegetables.
Right.
But to get the amount of protein we need out of the plant sources, do we have the capacity by square footage to produce all the different types of fruits and vegetables that we as a $7 billion population would need?
$7 billion population.
Did I say dollar?
You did.
7 billion people. Excuse me. This is why we have 2 of us.
Everybody,
If this was one person, this wouldn't work.
if you have a friend who has concussions,
Pete!
this is what it's like.
Pete, you're supposed to fact check me. Where the
Yeah.
fuck were you?
Yeah, no fact
not even
checking
here.
on that one.
But do we have the capacity to make all the diverse amount of fruits and vegetables that the human body would need, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is, we're saying
Mhm.
this one thing. Another one that I remember is they said, like, statistically, if a vegetarian eats even one portion of meat, the risk of colon cancer goes up like 40%. Well, why are you using vegetarians as the source? Like,
Mhm.
if you really want to do this, you would have a meat eater go off meat, try to measure their reduction in cancer causing agents, and have them go back on meat. If you have a vegetarian that's always been vegetarian and their body has adapted to that, like, I don't know, but like, what this is what I'm saying. I'm asking
Yeah, these are the questions.
These are the
yeah.
questions. So if they've always been a vegetarian and then you're giving them something their body's not used to, I don't know what kind of adverse effects that has.
Yeah.
So this is just something which I'm happy the documentary exists. That
Yeah,
we
me
can ask
too.
questions. It's
Yeah.
bringing a topic out. But we need to be really careful when we watch things and then be like, oh, well, we should never eat meat because of this documentary.
No, and
We should ask more questions.
I don't know that that's where the documentary is necessarily going. Even when now one of the skeptical.
Carrie has joined us. Carrie came to the
Yes.
show last
Oh,
night.
it
Thanks
was-
for coming, Carrie.
Right on, man. Oh man, I wish I would have been there to see the
You
World
died?
of Grey reunion and see you busted open like a little fish. But you know, one of the things in the movie that I liked was they had this firehouse in New York, right? And all these firemen,
Yeah.
and they got the firemen to do the 7. I think they call it a 7-day challenge. And the 7 day they brought groceries in and everything, and the firefighters ate all plant-based for the next week, which is great. That's awesome. And then they showed the befores and they showed the afters. Now, here's the deal. Those firefighters got the vitals that they had at the before, not just by eating meat, but by eating what they were eating. So, and then they suddenly, for the next week, went to a plant-based diet. Thank you, buddy. Went to a plant-based diet. They took that 7-day challenge, and after the 7-day challenge, things were obviously improved significantly.
Whoa, hold on a second.
Okay.
Not necessarily true.
Okay.
Yes, there was improvement. That's great. However,
Yes.
you have a guy reading the results, and every result he reads, this is amazing. I
Sure.
was listening really quickly, and I heard one of the blood pressure changes. His systolic changed like 2 points or something like
Yeah.
that. Like that blood pressure change could happen literally from morning to night.
Yeah.
My blood pressure, not even morning to night, from taking it once, then taking it a third time.
Sure.
So again, like we got to be careful here that we're not getting too much of a hard on for some of these.
Well, that my
some of these
point. My
clips.
point is this, though. If anybody decided to take a week,
Tyler has joined us.
Ty, and eat clean,
Yeah.
they may have the same results. Like if they took the 7-day challenge. Okay, well, what if he was eating nothing but Twinkies?
Oh, totally.
Twinkies aren't
100%.
are considered vegetarian or
Yeah.
whatever, or vegan or whatever you want to call them,
Yeah.
right? So they ate clean for a
Awesome.
week. Yeah. I want to take the 7-day challenge. And it's funny, like my wife and I have experimented since we watched Game Changers. My wife and I have experimented, and we've really tried hard to take some meat out. And if we can go, a couple of days without it and then just have it. And I think that's moderation. It doesn't really talk about moderation necessarily in there, but it does say it does talk about not going cold turkey. It does do that. Like
so I just want to be careful that we don't jump to too many different points without delving into the world of gray a little bit.
Yeah.
Also, I got hit in the head yesterday, so let's be careful because I can't follow this stuff too fast. A couple of things I like what you said. A couple of things that I liked that you said that I want to delve into. One being that just because you're going plant-based doesn't mean you're automatically healthy with your dietary choices, right? And this is a big issue that you can see a lot of times with vegans is okay, you're cutting out meat, but then they're eating a lot of like desserts and like
a lot of sugar and stuff. Right? Oh, it's not meat, so I guess I'm okay. Yeah.
So we have to remember that, okay, let's say the documentary is 100% true and all meat is bad. Okay, sugar, just as fucking bad.
Processed sugar. All meat is bad. Is that what the documentary is saying?
Okay, well, if it is, well, kind of is.
Do you think so?
Well, yeah, there's a lot of parts where it's saying even chicken is gonna give you this, this, and this, right? And I'm gonna get into a little bit of that world a little bit as well.
Right.
But we need to remember that just cutting out meat does not mean your diet's perfect. And these firefighters, like you were saying, were on a very strict diet. The football players had a vegan chef that was cooking meals for them, which looked awesome, by the way.
They really all did. Like,
I'd be
if
vegan
I had that in my life,
I'd be into
no
it.
problem. Done.
So we just need to be careful. It doesn't mean that
watch
we
the movie
just,
and you'll see what we're saying about that.
Yeah.
You will too. You look at that and go,
the
wow.
other point that you made that I want to make clear is I am just being critical of this documentary. I'm not saying that humans, especially in North America, shouldn't eat less meat. Almost guaranteed we all eat too much meat. We definitely eat too much processed meat, which I'll get into as well. So there's definitely concerns. And I was saying this to Kyle because me and Kyle were talking about the documentary. His sister's vegan, and she showed him the documentary, and he was like, "Oh, it's interesting. What do you think?" So what Kyle does is when research, he just talks to me and asks me my opinion, which is cool because then we can hash it out. And
absolutely,
I hadn't seen it, but yeah, I mean, we just kind of have to. We just need to be careful on some of the little nuancy things. I had a point there about what me and Kyle were talking about, but that's
what were you and Kyle talking about?
Well, I mean, we talked about a
processed
lot of things.
Meat. Was it to do with processed food?
Oh, sorry. Thank you. What I was saying to Kyle is like I agree that the meat industry is god awful. Like the way we produce cows in the States is worse. Canadian beef isn't as bad, but the States, they're using corn feed, which is like not what cows eat. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they're just mass producing feed so they can mass produce cows, and they're putting drugs in them. Same with the chickens. Like, if you ever watch how they put chickens in like the conveyor belts and they like.
And thank God this documentary wasn't about that. We'll talk about Game Changers on Netflix,
right.
Gary.
That's what we're talking about. This is my way of prefacing. Like, I'm not trying to be super biased, like for meat.
Right.
Like I said to Kyle, if we want to talk about meat industry reform, I will vote for that overnight.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
sure.
I grew up as a hunter that was taught to respect wildlife, and like,
you grew up as a hunter?
I grew up as a hunter. Yeah.
What was your best kill?
I've only ever got grouse. Grouse are delicious. So here's the other thing too. My dad taught me to never like take a shot that I thought was never gonna like get it, like, right? Because if they run off into the woods, and I had a couple that I lined up, my dad, no, you're right. And there was one that I just wasn't ready for, and it was like a doe, and the buck just ran past, and I didn't have my gun ready, and my dad my face was like, fuck? And my dad was like, bah, because it was like from like us to the tree away. Like it was so fucking
Oh,
close.
And the tree is close for the viewers
Oh,
out there.
man.
That tree is right there.
It's really bad. But so my point is, like, I'm not against reducing or anything like this. I'm not even saying that more plant-based isn't better for your health. I just saying I have a lot of questions with this documentary, and I know a lot of people that are starting to already pick apart some of the little parts. Like there's an Olympian in the documentary at one point that goes into plant-based, but they never show how they do after. And Cope said it was their worst Olympic performance ever.
Oh, there you go.
So this is the thing, is we're cherry picking the ones that the diet worked for, but we're not talking about who went from meat to plant-based and it was worse. And I think this is where the nuance of not everything works for everybody comes in.
Every body is different.
Genetics.
My body is different than your body. Your body is different than Bobby Bass's body.
Thank God for that.
Oh no, that just started something. Game Changers. I think everybody should watch Game Changers. I think that everybody should, make that consideration. Yo, Leah, I think everyone should make that consideration and see if
it's getting itchy.
Is it?
But I can't scratch it.
It's getting itchy. Chair shot to the head.
Yeah, everyone should watch all
everywhere.
documentaries, even if they're questionable. We should watch everything, but we should question everything. George Carlin. We're going back to George Carlin. Yeah. Like we teach your kids, but don't just teach your kids. Teach your kids to question things.
Yeah.
Right. Question, not just teach your kids to read or watch things. Teach them to question what they read and watch. Question everything.
I'm interested in doing the 7-day challenge.
What is the 7-day challenge?
7-day challenge is eating
Just
nothing but plant-based
Yeah,
stuff
totally. Try it
for
out.
7 days.
Well,
and see how you feel afterwards. I bet you feel lighter.
One thing I thought about doing
You don't feel heavy inside.
is doing plant-based meals on show days.
On show days.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
Just before the match.
Because one of the things that this documentary did talk about is the idea that these on a micro level, the idea of
Morning,
having what's that?
She said morning.
Morning, Leah. The idea that even that same day, your body will have that it will make a difference whether or not you've gotten the plant-based versus the meat-based, and it, from athletic to sexual stuff, not for the ladies but for the men. They had the idea of sexual stuff. What they did with
I didn't like that.
Why?
I'm going to tell you why. Because he says it in there that it's not a scientific study.
Yeah.
And I mean, so and I guess this is totally a me thing, but for me,
we should explain the whole thing, how it happened.
Okay, so in the documentary, they have this like scientific experiment where they hook up 2 rings to 3 guys' penises overnight, and men, when they sleep, get erections throughout the night.
We cycle through the night.
And so they measure the like girth and strength of the erection and the overall frequency of the erections for both meat and plant-based. The reason why I don't like it is because I don't know enough about the science to know how effective this study, like this experiment is. And he even says it's not a scientific study for a movie that should really be sticking to the science. So the only reason you're putting in there is to pander to men that want erections, and it's just kind of like this emotional.
And the women who love them.
I know, but it's just kind of like, is that really fucking a necessary thing to put in there? And that could be a me thing. I mean, I don't know. It's just a me thing.
We'll dive into the psychology of Colin Cutler.
My erections are fine.
Oh, that's good. That's good. No, so the way the movie,
I have one right now, actually. This is why we do the shot from here up.
Is that why? Oh man, I was duped.
I have a couple other things with this. Is there any other points you want to kind of get to before I?
Well, I like the idea of so the whole thing is that they would feed these athletes a burrito that was meat based. They would then wait a while, draw blood, take that blood, put it in a centrifuge, spin that sucker around, heat it up like crazy, and then would then observe the blood and then investigate and tell us what they're seeing.
What were they looking at, though?
That's what I don't understand. They were looking at blood that had separated out, and then in the middle there was.
What is that clear part?
Was it plasma?
Is it plasma?
I'm not sure if that was plasma or if maybe the part on top was plasma. But regardless, it separated out the blood, and it would be cloudy in the middle. Okay, as it separated, it would be really, really cloudy. Then the next day, the same athletes ate the same burrito except plant-based protein inside it as opposed to meat. So it's the same thing, apples to apples, but not apples to apples. More like, I don't even know what the food analogy would be.
Apples to steak.
Burritos to burritos, I guess. And anyway, and then they would do the same exercise, and it was right clear in the middle. And the point that they were making about that was that your body can have immediate effect of making a right choice like that.
So,
and they were saying from an athletic standpoint,
Yeah.
and then the sexual part was saying also from a sexual standpoint. All three of the gentlemen, they had the same test, and then they had the sleeping erection test, and
1 second.
all three of them exhibited more positive results if you
more
like
frequent
sex.
erections and bigger
Yeah.
circumference. So the
Yeah.
the blood test thing, because I'm an idiot and I didn't quite understand what they were testing. I was talking about it, and Etienne was like, "What were they testing?" I was like, and then Neil was like, "Oh, they were, I think the plasma or something like that." And Etienne started to explain like why that is, like why the meat one is more cloudy. It has to do with like a certain amount, like the blood just catching it or whatever. And he's like, there's certain levels that are absolutely perfectly healthy and have absolutely no adverse effects. So the difference between it being a little something like that. So this is why like when he comes back on, he can explain this better. So hopefully
Sure.
he's watching this and he can like pick what I just said and like correct it.
Sure.
But it was something like there's a certain amount of levels and that's like it literally has zero effect. So this is where I'm starting to feel like this documentary is just like doing little things just to like make people feel like, oh, look how much better this is.
Maybe.
That's the thing with documentaries is if they can get a buzz, more people are going to watch it, and then it's going to make more money.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of it's tough, and it could just be my cynical brain, because I always follow the dollar, and if there's more money to be made in a narrative, because this has happened before, and I'm not saying that this documentary is in the same lane, but What the Health, when it came out, it was a documentary trying to explain that fat causes diabetes, not sugar, and it got destroyed by critics and scientists because it's just ridiculous, right? Even with the limited knowledge that I know, high glycemic foods spike your blood sugar. Any spike in blood sugar that's more than your body can normally use, your insulin kicks in, and doing that in a cycle causes insulin resistance, which causes diabetes. Like this is just, we just know this, right? We've known this since the 80s. And if you look at the rate of diabetes, especially juvenile diabetes, from when we had, your standard diet in the 50s to when low-fat diets came in, which caused more sugar, you can see the trend of diabetes spike. So that anecdotal evidence alone, and not even really anecdotal, that's data, right? So I mean, documentaries like that have come and gone, and so really with this documentary being so new, it's just going to take time for people to kind of go through and
where's the dollar on this one? Like, what do you think this documentary, do you think that it was agenda based, or do you think it was more?
It could be. I mean, you don't know which industries are lobbying. The sugar industry has lobbied for years to change things like the American like how we have our diet standards, right?
Yeah.
They've always had lobbyists that are in the sugar industry, and there's a whole documentary on this called Sugarcoat about how the sugar industry just dumps like billions of dollars into making people think that sugar is okay and that fat is bad, and there are agendas. I'm not saying that this is. I'm not saying that.
Everybody should watch Game Changers. It's
Arnold
definitely one worth watching.
Arnold Schwarzenegger is one of the producers. He's really vegan, so if he's on the vegan train, maybe he helped this produce this movie because
is he vegan now?
Yeah, he's totally
vegan.
plant-based.
Okay.
So maybe that's why. Maybe it's because he feels like this is something that's important to get out. Or maybe there's mostly truths and then just some things that we need to talk about, right?
Right.
Maybe they added some things that maybe they shouldn't have just because it was going to get the point across a little bit better.
Okay.
One example of this is and this is when you watch it, you'll be like, oh yeah, okay, shit, that we really need to be careful of, is they're trying to say that all meat is bad. And then their example is how processed meat has cancer-causing carcinogens. No one's ever fucking denied that.
Right.
We've always known that, not always, but like recently, we've known that processed meat has carcinogens and causes cancer.
Right.
Like this doesn't need to be said in the documentary, but they throw it in there, sandwiched in, saying that, oh, it's not just processed meat, it's also normal chicken and tuna and blah blah blah, and then they throw this right in the middle where they're talking about processed food. So you kind of go,
and it clouds the
"What?"
issue. It definitely,
yeah, it just makes by the end you're like, oh yeah, all meat's bad, I guess.
Yeah, it's
And
an exclamation point that doesn't need to be made.
And I don't blame it. Like I said, I took video production. I get what you're doing. But when it comes to like everyone just turning a corner and be like, oh, we should all just be plant-based or whatever, like we just need to be careful.
Right.
Cope was pissed. I just kept ribbing him. I was like, did all 3 of those matches and I feel pretty good. I think it was the plant-based meal I had today. And he's like literally got a steak in his mouth. You shut the fuck up. It's so funny. Just got him riled up. So that is, I'd like to know what people think of this.
Yeah.
If you've seen Game Changers, like throw your opinion in. And
like I look at the bodybuilder who's in that.
Right.
Okay. And I mean, I've got some friends who have competed in high level bodybuilding competition, and it's such a crazy thing. Like it's such a neat science.
Yeah.
The way that you gotta the way that they swell themselves and they time it right, and they limit their water and all that sort of stuff. And then there's this one bodybuilder who's like, I don't do any of that stuff. I'm just plant-based and I just go for it and I just look great all the time. And to me, that really simplified things. Like I don't like, I think it almost simplified it almost a little too much. Like I was like, okay, I'd like to know a little bit more about what he's saying, but let's just assume what he's saying is absolutely true. I would submit that his body chemistry is such that it reacts well to what he's doing.
Yeah.
Where other body chemistries don't necessarily do that.
I have some questions with that as well. I'm not sure because I was going to rewind it and then I was like, I'm already watching it. But they had 2 there. And I feel like one said, like on the bottom, it said he was natural, but the other one, I don't think it did. So we got to be, because they're talking about testosterone. We got to be careful because we don't know if these guys are juicing or not. Or not necessarily juicing, but taking testosterone replacement therapy. Because if meat, and I'm just totally theoretical, right? But if meat does help with testosterone, and so he's plant-based and his numbers are down, and then he's getting testosterone replacement therapy, like now that also clouds the issue. But the other reason I question it is because I'm a big fan of a guy named Jason Ferruga who had the Renegade diet. He is the
Renegade. He wrestled in WCW years ago.
It's called the Renegade diet.
Yeah.
And it's based off of intermittent fasting.
Yes.
But he has a website and I follow him a lot. He really simplifies training. He's a big, massive tattooed dude. And he was vegan for like 5 years or something like that.
Okay.
And he's a big, not a bodybuilder, but like a strength coach. And he likes to keep his body fat down. Just a big dude.
Right.
And he said he was vegan for 5 years. And there was a lot of aspects that were really good, like inflammation being down and things like that. But he said the hardest thing, Carrie Lee has joined us.
Yeah.
The hardest thing for him was staying at a low body fat percentage, because a lot of the things you need to take in to get enough protein for what he's doing are either really high in fat or it's a lot of carbs.
Right. Okay.
So it's really hard to keep the body fat down. So that's why I'm suspicious of these bodybuilders, like to what exactly they're doing. Now, nutrition is like chemistry, right? You're putting a bunch of different chemicals. So maybe he just has the right formula. I don't know. I really want to know what people think about this. It'd be really interesting to get Etienne and his wife's view on this, because this is what they do, right? They're nutritionists, and they're very, very smart people, and they're very articulate, and they're not people that like have biases. He's very logical, and like, you know what I mean? Like, he's just somebody that I just trust their opinion, and I don't trust everybody's opinion. So this would be interesting. I think I'm not cynical at all.
No,
I think it'll just be a cool follow up. So yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, I do highly recommend it, especially for people who are maybe on a journey to try and change, or evolve where they're at from a nutrition standpoint.
Yeah.
Like I love the idea that, I don't know exactly if this is the right, because I've only heard it anecdotally, but I've heard that your body changes its cells every 7 years.
So Joe Rogan used to say that. Apparently he's debunked himself.
No.
Yeah, saying that every cell in your body like regenerates itself, so you're a completely different person from cell to cell.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure he's debunked himself, but I'm not sure, because I've heard that too. But I don't think that's quite how it works.
Okay. But our cells at the end of the day do regenerate
in
some way.
Yeah, definitely a lot. Yeah.
Okay. And that happens. And we are what we eat. That's what makes us what we are. That's the genetic material that replenishes itself is what goes into our cake hole here.
I would just like to say sorry, but my mom's texting me like, "Where are you? What do you like?" She's watches this podcast all the time. We do it every Sunday at 11. Like,
Hey,
are
Jay.
you kidding me right now?
Hey Jay, come on board the World of Great
sorry,
train.
keep going.
That's okay. No, don't be. And so obviously we are made up of what we put into our mouths. We're made up of whatever it is we put in there, and therefore, if we put better things in, we're going to be made up of better things, and our bodies will perform better. That makes a lot of sense to me. And so, if you're thinking about trying to find ways to put things into moderation, this is a good movie that will get you thinking about it. It'll get you pondering the idea of, hey, do you eat too much meat?
Yeah.
How does meat affect you?
Yeah.
You know, that's why I do want to do the 7-day challenge. I want to know how meat affects me.
100%.
Yeah. And you know, sometimes I snore. Well, there's like 3 or 4 nights where Candy was like, yeah, you haven't snored at all. And it happened to be nights that we had been meatless.
Yeah.
Or days, like entire days that we had been meatless. And then I had a little bit of meat. And she said, oh, you snored that night. And it's like, okay. And that happened randomly. Like that was
Interesting.
just, yeah. Like,
That's very interesting.
so, you know, I want to know how my body is affected by meat. And this movie did a really good job of making me actually, instead of just go, but actually put actions towards things.
Well, and you know, I say this every podcast, but expansion, contraction, right? So if we have this podcast goes on and it goes to all the extremes, people know this is bullshit, no, this is good, but then it kind of people start to
Jay
think.
Pollimer just joined.
And then it kind of, you know, it narrows itself back down, and maybe a few people make changes, and we all kind of, you know, help ourselves navigate the path to make ourselves better and make everyone better, because we're all just a bunch of people living in a society divided by black and white arguments. And we are here today, tomorrow, always to help you all and ourselves explore the world of gray. Thank you all for joining us. We will do a follow-up with Etienne in the future and get a little bit more into this. Thank you all.
Peace and love, YouTube.
And love.
Peace and love, YouTube.
We needed to end it.